everybody. This is Anna and Brian from Amata World podcast, and today we have our next guest for Web3 episode. The first guest for Web3 episode from 2026. Congrats. Bridget, who is the founder and CEO of Traceport. Hi, Bridget. How are you?
Hello, hello. Good afternoon. I guess it's my morning. But yeah.
And thank you for joining us today. And maybe can you give a quick introduction to yourself and your background and how you ended up in the Web3 space?
Sure. So my background is mainly technology, though I am also an accountant and have done some accounting for clients, but I started out in systems work, so like database administration, system admin, domain admin, that sort of thing, so pretty techy. And then I went into data and data querying and conversions, and so a lot of really hands-on technical work. And it just so happened that it was mainly in nonprofit or nonprofit adjacent spaces. Whether it was for a software company that served that sector or in the sector itself, and then also for very large Fortune 250, 500 companies in their, what we call in the States, the CSR area. So corporate social responsibility. So, there's a big foundation and I was part of the governance and running the systems, etc. So yeah. That's, in a nutshell, my background. Oh, you also
Right.
said what led you to Web3, so I could go into that. Yeah. So as you can imagine, with a sort of a tech mind and then also an accounting mind, the space sort of merges, as it were, into blockchain. And I did first hear about blockchain early days, somewhere around 2010, and it was Bitcoin only at the time. I sort of set it aside because I was really busy raising kids, had a full-time job, but I had a pin in it. And then 2017 came around, and that's when I took a super deep dive. Learned all about, the ICO craze at the time and the tokens and, learned about DeFi, what that means. So it's pretty enamored with all of it. Started a nonprofit in Minnesota with a partner called the Minnesota Blockchain Initiative. They're still around. I left it for various reasons. Partially, though, was because I was a bit disillusioned with the progress of Web3 and the tech of Web3. Like in my mind, since I'm technical, I want things to be scalable and to actually work without creating these layer twos that create security vulnerabilities, etc. So in 2019, I found BitcoinSV, which is a big block original Satoshi Vision version. It is the original Bitcoin, actually. It can do all of the things that the Web3 narratives promise. And so I've never looked back, and that is where I am today in Web3, learning and teaching about that tech and watching the ecosystem progress. So
Cool. It's great to hear your story of how you got into Web3, and I think that's also inspired you to start your own company. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing at Traceport?
yeah,
I mean,
so I
yeah.
am I am founder and CEO of Traceport, and our platform has pivoted actually into essentially an infrastructure product, an API, you could call it. It is an API, and it provides the ability to prove any data uh, externally. So I like to have folks that aren't familiar with this tech that I'm talking about think about a public notary, right? But a digital public notary of data, but then add on this little piece, and this is a bit geeky, but I don't know if you know what a checksum is. Okay, so nerds who download software onto their computer will sometimes verify through checksum software that nothing in that software has changed, so that it doesn't, like, somebody doesn't intercept and, like, put a different website up that has the package, and you download a software that might have a virus in it. So that's what that secure checksum does. And it's a bit nerdy. Hopefully the audience won't be too overwhelmed by that. But my point is that we're not just a digital notary. We are ensuring that whatever data that you have allowed Traceport to put on a public blockchain has never changed. And someone in the public could verify that data. So it's not Traceport claiming the data is what it is. And it's not the company. Well, the company is claiming that it is the data, but it is the company is allowing the public blockchain to prove that they've never changed it. So that's what's innovative and I think revolutionary about what we're trying to do. So.
And maybe so our like audience can understand it better. Just like, can you give a couple of like use cases, or like what kind of industries would use it, will be more interested in it? So yeah.
Sure. So first off, any industry, any sector, any organization can use the API for proving their data. But I will say that what I'm particularly proud of is that we have a use case already built that uses the API, and that is Traceport for Charities. So that is a SaaS product. It is, you might call it a prototype for what this software can do. And so we actually have a charity that we've onboarded a couple weeks ago that has actually using it. So this is all, publicly available for use. And so the charity, the way it works is it's its own application, and Traceport for Charities helps them attach so all of their financial incoming records, so which are mostly donations, but we help them attach them to the purpose, and then that record is what gets logged to the blockchain. So it's a hash of that record. And then the verification piece, they keep their data in their software, right? And the verification piece asks them for that data so it can compare it against what's on chain. So,
Do you think with the charities, because like I think I heard a long time ago, even like on some of the hackathons, that some of the charities they were looking into Web3 and blockchain solutions, just because when you're donating, sometimes it's really hard to see, did it actually like did it change anything? So what's the effect? So on like using the chain, you can actually trace where did it go, and
right. And there are several projects that have attempted versions of exactly what you're talking about. It's a hard problem to solve. And so that's why I started with just the donation side. So later, Traceport for Charities can definitely start that sort of, where did the funds go piece, but it's very complex. And the reason I know this is that I've worked in charities for 20 years. So these systems are complex, and it's not so easy to tie what this incoming dollar is actually used for. And to some degree by design, because charities have budgets for their programs that they run. But one thing that I'm proud of with Traceport that we have running, the SaaS product for charities, is that I help them attach any unrestricted donations, which is a large percentage of their donations. I help them attach to their budget pie for each program, so that a donor could see oh, well, they're budgeting, they've got this percent that goes to this program, etc. So we have all of that built into Traceport for Charities as a start towards exactly what you're saying. Later, we can have buckets that, help them even put more on chain that will get there. But you have to start small, slow, right, and deliberate with the big vision. So,
I'd like to maybe explore a little bit more about the story behind the pivot. So you kind of mentioned you made this pivot to become more infrastructural. So can you tell us maybe about a bit more about Traceport before the pivot and what maybe convinced you that this pivot is probably the right direction for the future of Traceport?
sure. So the pivot is really important. And I would say for any founder out there, um, when you're starting with your vision, I would say don't get too locked in to what you're picturing, because something a lot better can come through the really hard process of building. And that's really what happened for me. As I built the Traceport for Charity SaaS platform, I needed the blockchain piece and I had the blockchain background. So I had several providers that would have provided me the API to use them. But since I'm a builder and I'm actually now an engineer, I knew I could build it myself. And in the process of building the blockchain piece, a big vision came for me about how we can essentially abstract away the blockchain for organizations that want to use it for exactly the same purpose, which is transparency and immutability with data. So it was exciting for me because when I build something, I'm very hands-on. And so I have to see it, and then things break, and then I want something and I don't know how to get it, so I keep building. And so through that iterative process, that's when the bigger vision came. And I created a method for any sector to be bootstrapped into my system. And any organization in that sector has their own, sorry to get a little nerdy, but they have their own cryptographic isolated space from which to attest their data. So it's basically plug and play ready because I took the time to be patient and build myself. So it's a much bigger offering now. And I think towards what I'm really excited about with blockchain is towards honesty and reliability and trustworthiness of data.
Think you mentioned as well a bit about like teaching. So I wanted to like ask what do you do in there? And as well, because you mentioned like raising kids, so like are you trying to teach your own kids like what's the easiest way to make them interested in blockchain? Is it like gaming or like so
Right. Well, so with my kids, I have three, they all do their own thing. And I don't try to, I don't, unless they ask, I don't try to press. One of my kids is a software engineer and he's a really good engineer. So he's an excellent person to have, you know, to consult with on these things. But yeah, so the kid part is like they know what I'm into and they love that I love what I do, and it's vice versa. So, but as far as the teaching part, I have a YouTube channel. I teach about mainly BitcoinSV. Sometimes I actually veer into AI stuff because I think emerging tech with generative AI is absolutely amazing, and I feel everyone should be using it. I think it's a very helpful, you could think of it like a high-end admin assistant. You have to watch it, but it really, really can help. And it's helped me a lot with building. So I have a YouTube channel. I have a website devoted to teaching about Bitcoin SV. I have two different websites. I mean, I can give you those links, but yeah, it's really because I'm really passionate about it and I've taken the time to deeply learn. I offer that to the world in hopes that people will will catch on to the power of Bitcoin.
I think I want to get back a little bit to the how to make a new generation interested in it.
Ah,
Because
okay.
that's the reason why I mentioned gaming. So just like if it's
Yeah.
what do you think about that? Is it like
Yeah.
this is the way to or
So gaming is really interesting because all of these centralized platforms let you do cool things, but you're contained in their walled garden. So with Web3, you really free the ownership up. So you could think of it like, I'm not a gamer, so but I do think it is a really good use case. And I did do a lesson in my Bitcoin teaching tool about all the ways that gaming can change, and I can share that too. Um, I think it is definitely a key way to help people get into Web3. There are some applications out there in the Bitcoin SV space and certainly in other spaces as well. Um, so I'm hoping that that will be a way that we can bring in, to be honest with you, um, I think I think that it's going to happen in a way that surprises people. We can't make it hard for them, and that's what it's been in the Web3 space. It's been hard for people like, what, I gotta with this wallet and I can only use it here. And so what we're trying to do in the Bitcoin SV space is help people understand and moving the architecture towards the idea that you don't log into applications, applications log into you. And that's probably maybe mind-blowing for some, but it's very possible in, Web3, especially with using the Bitcoin SV tech.
Can you maybe walk us through how this process looks like? Because I think it can be quite hard to imagine for a lot of people, like what it means for the application to, I guess,
Yeah,
log into you. Yeah,
I know,
can you tell
right?
us a little bit more about that experience? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it just so happens that in my teaching journey, I haven't done the video yet, but I'm excited to do it because there are steps to all this. Uh, um, And so one of the things that I've done is I show you how you create a cryptographic key, so a public-private key pair with your seed phrase, okay? And then the application does a call. It says here, show me that you own that key by signing this bit of data. And when that happens, you give them, so you take that snippet of data and you sign it with your key. So we're not even on any blockchain right now. We're just doing cryptography, right? You sign that and then you give them the signature bits of that application. And it says, oh, it can't be anybody but you. There's no possible way it could be anybody but you. Now, that's a primitive I'm talking about, meaning there's a lot of, proving that you are who represents the said key, uh, but that's the beginning of how the application signs into you. So imagine that your key has on chain somewhere. It represents different pieces of your identity. And perhaps it has 5 different types of identities because maybe an application only needs to know that you're over 18, right? And so that key, that when you sign with the key that maybe the key is registered somewhere. Maybe it's registered with a government authority that has shown, and maybe it's some biometric. That's a controversial topic. People don't like, but that is probably coming, and I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. So does that make sense? How that's the beginning? And so all of that stuff, your identity, that's stored in your private files. They only need to know, we call it zero knowledge proof, but they only need to know that you passed the test.
It's pretty cool. I think
Yeah.
it's still yeah, I guess it'll take a long time for maybe the people to start understanding like how this all works. Do you think that, in the same way that many of the younger generations are very much becoming AI native, do you think they'll start to be more appreciative and understand the value behind this sort of way to sign in and verify your identity without maybe handing over too much information when you're, for example, signing up to various platforms? Because I think we all kind of start to accept that we need to divulge so much information just to gain access to basic free services sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's really such a great question because people are tired. They're tired and they've resigned to that's how it goes, that these centralized walled gardens like Facebook and, Google, all of them, that they just get to see your data because that's just how it is. And, it's how you can use their platform. They take as they take your data, they sell it off to data brokers and it gets used. Well, and I know that's not exactly your question. Your question is, how do we get people to see this? I think that we build it, and we build it in a way that makes it easy for them. And there does happen to be a project in the BitcoinSV ecosystem called the MetaNet Academy. And there are many apps in this MetaNet, as they're calling it, that actually do all these things. So think micropayments. So instead of, you paying for a subscription to see a Netflix movie, you pay per stream and through micropayments. See, there's so many possibilities with micropayments. You share content and you are paid through micropayments. Americans and people in the West, they're not as excited about that because, we've learned to deal with the credit card companies taking that cut and we're okay with it. But imagine in a developing country, if you can get paid through micropayments without having the middleman in there, it's a much more powerful tool in that. And it's powerful for everyone. So I think we are getting there. There are builders that are doing this. You need a scalable layer one blockchain though that's secure, and so that is why BitcoinSV is an answer to all of this. But people haven't known about it. It's sort of a chain that people haven't really known about. Right now, we have got new node software that has between 1 and 2 million transactions a second. So that's why Traceport is using it, because it's a scalable layer and it can be done inexpensively.
And do you have any other kind of, so usually I like to ask our guests about if there's a particular problem in the world where you think blockchain could be a good solution to. Do you have like some use cases where it actually like keeps you awake at night, maybe? I don't know.
Ah,
So, and
Um,
maybe like in the long term future, you wish it's like, oh, I hope that I will reach that. I will be really proud of myself if I'll reach this.
yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing is I'm actually doing it right now with Traceport. So I'm passionate about what I'm building because I think it'll make the world a better place. And not just like Miss America, like really, I think it can really, really help make the world a better place in the way of, so there are many use cases for Web3 to your question, that can really help the world. And we've touched on some of those, right? Data ownership. If you own that data with those keys that I'm talking about, you can say, sure, you can use my data, but you can pay me, and you can pay me in micropayments. And that all happens, so my product doesn't do that. But what it does do is it gets us, it's a bridge basically, in the way that if enterprises start using the chain for time stamping and making data immutable, then we have many transactions on chain, and that helps the chain grow. So you start in a way where you abstract blockchain from the people and get it being used, and then it starts catching on that way. And then we help people start understanding that they control their own keys, and they do it securely because builders have built it in a way that doesn't make it scary. That's so that's you know that's what brings in these multitude of use cases with any kind of smart contract you can think of can be done on Bitcoin. And so all the things that were promised can really come to light with this tech. And so, did that answer your question? I'm not exactly sure. Okay.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask, thinking about maybe a bit more into the future with Traceport and maybe the industry as a whole. Do you have any sort of, I guess, hopes and predictions for the future that you could share with us?
Yeah, so I'm in a place right now where I did the pivot. I've got the Traceport for Charities SaaS product launched that uses the API. I have spec'd out different industry use cases. So my place right now is probably finding a sector that has a specific case, like maybe it's compliance, maybe because forcing honesty is not going to work. People, if they have their central database and it works fine for the most part, they're probably not going to be incented to use the product. However, there may be use cases, like even in the pharmaceutical industry, where they must show that, this lot was on this day and didn't change. Or even IoT devices. It's really exciting for IoT devices too, because you can write so many transactions to the chain on layer 1 with BSV. So, yeah, for me, I think the stage I'm at is getting a foothold in a sector so that we show the use case beyond just charities, and then the sky's the limit from there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's a perfect time to wrap up. But if you have any last words or just messages that you want to spread out at the end, and maybe if you can share what is the best way to reach out to you. We'll include the links to the description. But if, for example, some startups or founders or some people will have some additional questions or where
Sure.
they can find you.
Well, since this is a Web3 focused podcast for this, I think what I would say is to my fellow Web3 passionate people is don't give up hope, because we are going to show how people can own their data, that we can remove middle people. The banks aren't going to go away, but we can, when that you can send a payment peer to peer, that's super powerful. We have a stable coin now that can, intermediate on that. So don't give up hope, because it's for real. And there are real things being built right now that can keep the vision alive. So that's what I would say to that. How to reach me? I would say just go to traceport.io. An email to reach me is hello@traceport.io. I have a LinkedIn page that, I'm always responsive to DMs. The website, I just remodeled the marketing front to be API focused, but there's a direct link to the Charities application, and I am 100% open to any charity that wants to use Traceport as a pilot, because we're proving out that use case. And so I'm super excited if all the charities would start using Traceport, because the vision for that is so cool, because I can picture a global map with meta tags for this data that's not stored in a central database like Candid. Candid is a big sector data company and they do great things. But with this kind of data, you don't have a central repository. You have meta tags, forestation in Namibia. You can click on that and you can see all the projects that are doing that. So anyway, yes.
Cool. I think that's probably a good place to end. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great having you and great listening to your story. And I'm sure our listeners have also enjoyed listening to your journey and your opinion on the space. And yeah.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you reaching out very much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you for joining. Yeah. And to all our listeners, thank you for listening up to this point. And yeah, have a great day. Bye.